I wanted to talk with you. You had mentioned during your show when we came to see it, you had mentioned that you were thinking about putting together either a class series or a DVD series of like movement for actors and like how to transform yourself.
Yeah.
How to be a woman for stage, how to be a man.
I find
for
that's
stage.
useful for lots of people. We're going to do a number of classes. If you email me, I can let you know. I'm at lawsc@earthlink.net.
WSC.
At earthlink.net. And I'll put out a blast soon, but I'm going to teach clown, which is fun. I'm going to teach Shakespeare, which is fun. And I'm going to teach crossing gender for men and for women. I can do it in 3 hours. Just give everybody one profound experience of a whole lifetime as another gender. I design it for actors mostly, but I've done it for writers too. But you'd have to have a question. It's not just for Friday night going out purposes. I suppose that could be a question too, but on a practical level for actors, they're asking 7 or 8 actors to do a whole play all the time now. You know, because of the cost of hiring an entire cast.
Yeah.
25 people do a Shakespeare play. Now we have concept pieces, and 7 or 8 of us do the whole play. So I just did the Scottish play with 3 people, and I played Banquo, Macduff, Duncan, a witch, and one other guy. So I just played 5 guys. You just get them in a heartbeat. You walk on stage, you get a body center, you know who you are, you know what your function is, you have a language pattern that the writer gave you, and you're on. And I played men and women in a lot of different plays now. Small and big budget. So that's what, but there's just nothing like walking a mile in somebody else's shoes to start understanding why they behave differently. I have much more compassion and understanding about my dad now than I did when I was 19. Purely because I've spent that much time thinking about him. This is how he put his military boots on. This is what a gun feels like in your hand. This is the weight of a gun. This is what it feels like if you're imagining, even imagining you have kids. And you've got a gun, and there's an enemy. And you're right. You know? Whatever. I mean, think about it long enough, and you'll begin to understand why people do what they do.
Do you think women are not given permission to do what you did? Like, make peace with the absent father? Like, I don't feel that they are. Like,
You don't feel that they are?
Like, women, it's almost like the boy bond. The boy bonds with dad, the girl bonds with mom. You know?
You'd think. But that didn't happen in my family. My brother stopped talking entirely.
Wow.
I mean, he teaches French in high school or junior college situations, but he doesn't talk to me. He doesn't have adult conversations with the family about his feelings or thoughts, or even his activities. He pretty much talks about money and cars, which is not a bad thing, but I used to know my brother. Before he was 14, we used to hang out all the time. But victimhood rendered him completely silent because I don't know what he can say about how emasculated he feels when his parents kill themselves. What is he supposed to do? Whereas for me, because I'm a girl who's totally given permission to delve into my thoughts and feelings and be an artist, I have
You're allowed to emote.
become very close with my dead father. And my experience of him is ongoing because I keep spelunking and finding more stuff. And I think compassion comes from delving. I think it's easy to write people off. And, you know, there's a lot of, even just the generational shifts. If I think about my mother having a half-black son when I was 4, that was 1962. It's not the same as now. It's not easy. You know?
Yeah,
when your own
it's
family
incredible.
says we're not raising that child, that's completely not possible. Do you know?
Right.
That was believable then. And now I can look at it and go, why isn't my brother? And they're like, shut up, you were 4, what help was it? You know what I mean? You have no idea how hard it was. You just don't know.
Exactly.
I mean, I
Because it
remember
is very
Kennedy
different
being
now.
shot, but I wasn't there in the same
Right.
way. We were living in Berkeley, but I didn't know that Berkeley was different from, well, I was in New York, where my mother went to high school, and things didn't feel possible, so I'm glad that we can live however we want. on this tiny patch of ground on the entire globe where most women are being stoned to death. 14-year-olds are being lashed to death because they're being told they're adulterers.
Yeah.
Of course we are the most privileged people on the planet. What can we do about it given that we know? Only still very little. Because there's not that much influence that we have, but more than we used to.
But we don't use it. I've kind of given up on women in the women's movement, in my head. Just like, okay, wait a minute now, this is like 40 years now of so-called women's movement. What have we done? Why is the one woman that gets close enough to the presidential office
Sarah Palin?
was married to the guy, but
Not Sarah Palin.
2 terms ago.
Oh, Hillary.
When Hillary told me, well, I've been in the White House before, I'm like, bitch, you were married and you weren't even doing it well. Like, I was personally insulted. I'm like, Hillary, why are you the only one stepping up? Now, 40 years, my lifetime is like, where are the women? What are we doing? And this is America. Like,
well,
yeah,
some of them
not
are up
happy.
there. I mean, Hillary's up there, Nancy Pelosi's up there. There's a bunch of people up there. Mostly they're getting, people are trying to pull them down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not easy to get up there and have a
Yeah.
voice and make a difference and deal with these idiot boys who never get anything done. You know, really, the budget thing.
Yeah.
That's stupid. It's stupid dumping 100 tons of radioactive water in the ocean. You can think of something else to do. I know it costs money, but that's not necessary. It's just, you know, it's very hard to be a leader when people are such stupid followers. You know, you really...
But there's a lot of leaders who are in the pockets of people. That's what is
Of course
so
there are.
upsetting.
That's right.
Sure.
That's right.
Sure.
That's right.
Because they're followers too. They're in a position of leadership, but that doesn't make them a leader.
Yeah.
And that's part of the difference as well.
Well, I just think what we can do is, on our personal, local levels, we can be more authentic. We could be more authentic about what we care about.
Yeah.
And what we do with our time. And if we're not being authentic, at least we should admit it. We're just off getting stoned and watching a movie, and that's all we're doing.
Not even do that. So I better like.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
Just
still,
talk
at least
to
be
it.
honest about it.
At least
Yeah.
be honest about it and don't
About who
say,
you are and what you are and what
I
you're
saw
doing.
that on Facebook and I'm really upset about it.
Yeah.
When we were talking about clothing and clothing as power or not power, I will often have cross-dressing clients who get corsets from me.
Mm.
And there's times where a man will come for a fitting, and I know that this man makes a lot of money, or this man works for NASA, or this man does whatever he does, and I'm thinking, you're doing this and you're enjoying yourself, but I bet for one day you would not want to be a woman for real. Just because of what you'd have to give up.
Right.
And the thing is, once you see things through the prism of transgenderism and cross-dressing, it changes everything. It changes how you deconstruct things, and you know that better than anybody, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think enough people think about this.
Well, I was actually thinking when you were discussing about doing your movement classes and even doing DVDs of this, you know, like this quick, here's quick 30 minutes, you got to get to an audition and you need to behave like a man.
Right.
Let's help you. And my first thought, and I was telling them about it afterward, my first thought was, oh my God, the amount of transgender people who would buy these. Because so often they're looking for an authentic way to behave as male or female, as masculine or feminine, and very often they go for the overt stereotypes because they're overcompensating.
Right.
I'm a man who's trying to present myself as a woman, or I'm a woman trying to present myself as a man, so I'm going to go way over the top and do this overt stereotype, which gets more criticism and critique from outside than if they pulled that back a little.
Mm-hmm.
To something a little more
That's true.
real.
That's true.
And I looked at that and I thought, wow, that would be just an amazing thing to offer.
But
You know,
I've
it's
heard
a-
men
it's a
talk
peak-
recently
it's
too
a
about not being
vehicle.
comfortable with authentic portrayals that men have of being beautiful women. They prefer the caricature.
That's
They
like
prefer
Kabuki. Kabuki did that. The Kabuki theater, where there's no women, but it's become such a caricature of women.
That's a highly evolved style of its
Yeah.
own. And quite interesting and beautiful. And whether it's actually women, I don't know, because by the time you take a woman and you've bound her feet and wrapped her and made her follow you that way, it's like, is that a woman or is that a specific Japanese
It's another
culture
Another
thing?
thing
You know, where
altogether.
you actually hurt somebody really badly and call it love. You know, it's like you can't actually do that to your feet. That hurts. Do you know what I mean? That's Chinese women. But I mean, the foot binding and the whole servile position of the female in that. If you take a man playing kabuki, he's going to be like a god, a celebrity of such fame and power that he can have anything. It's not the same as you say about being a woman.
Yeah.
Being a woman in Japanese culture is not the same. You don't have any power.
One of them was declared a national living treasure by the general. We bombed Pearl Harbor. Who was that general? MacArthur. The National Living Treasures, yeah. There's one of, he's probably passed away now. He's probably in his late 80s.
But you know, they have really amazing cults that support the women who play men in Japan.
Really?
Yeah, the women, the all-female theater that they have is huge. And the bands actually take on the actors and they support them. They pay for everything. They each pick, if I had a fan, so they would pick me and they would pay my rent and make sure I had haircuts, and they would just take care of. That's what they do. They have they pick someone to patronize, and they take care of all their needs. It's like a really important way to help the artists. Makes it competitive. You had said,
now did you just say a couple of statements back that straight guys would be uncomfortable having an authentic way to be women, to act as women?
Well, it's just one of the shades of the reaction that, I mean, I spent August in Provincetown. I got a writer's grant, and there's so many different men in Provincetown that the idea of each man having his own personally defined masculinity occurred to me the first time in its full depth. Not men, but each man. You know, I mean, long ago I could break down not women, but each woman, but I was still somehow seeing men as a cloud, gay men and straight men, and the gay men were so interesting. You know, the bears, the big heavy guys with a lot of chest hair, and the feminine guys, and the artist guys, and the guys who were just construction guys, and there were so many different guys. Obviously they were all gay, but they were also different.
Right.
And then it's sort of like Eskimos with words for snow, when you talked about not having the language for as many genders as we have, or even the idea of the word love, which seems so limited when you think about how to apply it. There should be more words.
Absolutely.
But, you know, kind of, it is a luxury to think about gender and sexuality and love the way that we can. But ideally it represents humanity at its best, where the great variety of who we are is wonderful and heavenly and exciting. And then you can see that here so clearly that then you could project it onto a simpler binary and still see the wonderment of the individual in a fairly recognizable, normal, you know, person. Just all these different kids are just so fulfilling to know so many great young kids who are very comfortable with their sexuality and their artistry. I think more they're grappling with their political voice and what they can do on a dying planet when money is controlling so many important decisions that they don't feel like they can affect.
Right.
I feel like that, and I'm not a kid.
I know. It's a very that is the question. We could get diverted into other questions that are smaller questions. But right now, when the planet is in such terrible trouble, and I know that sounds silly, but I don't think it's unimportant that we only have 10 years and we have to actually get on to some more important things. You know, as a whole country, we could have as a collective, as a world, we should be trying to figure out how to house a third of the Japanese people, but we're not talking about it. You know, we're not. Where are all the pets going to go? What happened to? That was a lot of people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
These people are still homeless. We're not talking about it. You know, it's like, what are we going to do? We should open up a whole national park. You know, there's a lot of millions of people need homes. But, you know, it's kind of, I mean, it makes doing theater, and theater is going to die if there's no money for it. There's no way to put it on. So it is possible that I won't do my Hamlet. It's possible that my company will die because there's no philanthropic money coming for women in the arts necessarily.
Well, I thought we went to see, we saw Avenue Q recently when it was playing at Pantages, and I hadn't seen it before. We hadn't seen it before, but our daughter had seen it when it was out here years ago. And it was one of those where I'm like, yeah, puppets, okay. And I like puppets, but it just didn't, like, this doesn't interest me. I really wasn't interested. And then we went on a cross-country trip and we listened to some of the songs, and I thought, okay, we need to see this. Because it's so irreverent, and it's so in your face about so many
Kids wrote
very
it.
important issues.
Really young
Yeah.
guys wrote it.
And what I loved about the experience, not just the play, which was fantastic, but seeing how many young people were at the theater. How many young people were at the theater. And this was an enthusiastic audience who knew what they were getting. They were not leaving halfway through going, oh my God, I didn't know that was what I was signing on for.
Right.
They were enthusiastic. They most of them knew the show, or were bringing, they knew the show, but were bringing friends who hadn't seen it before. It was very great, and they got a standing ovation. And this was a Saturday matinee, and the average age was 25, 30 for a Saturday matinee, which is bizarre,
Right.
And I just thought, wow, maybe there's some hope for theater.
Well, people love the irreverent stuff.
But how much corporate funding got it to Pantages? I mean, because I have friends who worked on the puppets and the costumes when it was created in New York. And that's where you're like, we don't know where it's going. Gee, we like it, it's funny,
Absolutely.
but we don't know. How do you take a chance
How
on
do you
things?
get it to that point?
And then how much were ticket prices? I mean, at Pantages.
Advantageous.
And it's hard.
It's certainly not meant for just anybody to go.
Yeah.
But it was at least, it felt good to see, okay, here are young people who, on the one hand, have a more limited income in some ways, but on the other hand, this is the target age that all advertising goes towards, So they're not spending this money going to the movies, they're not spending this money, downloading iTunes, they were going to the theater.
Right.
They were seeing live theater.
I have faith in stuff that ends up at Pantages. I mean, Wicked
and I
everything,
think that's
the
really,
kids like
really
that.
great.
Kids.
And it is one of those things that that live theater brings you something that you can't get anywhere else. And I don't think enough people know that.
No.
No, it's really exciting when people are turned on to it.
What you experience going to a live show.
Well, of course, having you got a Tony, and that gives it a nice bump.
Sure.
But those kids really did break out and get some cool writing on the table. Well, like I said, Dog Sees God, which is the play I just opened, there's a rich guy from Palm Springs who wants to bring it out there for the LGBT youth in Palm Springs.
Oh, fun.
So we might get a festival going for kids out there where I can teach some cross-gender classes and some acting classes and bring these 20-year-olds out and pay them something to perform and get a little live culture out there. Not much happening in Palm Springs, I take it. So, bit of a desert.
It's very different.
I didn't know there was any teenagers in Palm Springs.
So you gotta ship them in.
We're coming. We're gonna come get you.
There's teenagers in Palm Springs?
I mean, I know that there's like a lot of gay resorts in Palm Springs.
It'd be nice for the actors to stay there.
But yeah.
But there's still
Women's Leather Weekend.
wonderful.
But there's
Funny performing going on at Dinosaur.
Yeah, this is pretty
Dinosaur was just there, I know.
Different. There's the Dinosaur Weekend up there. Yeah. There's very